They go outside, it's like a wall.
Feeling the heat, scorching temperatures smother the GTA.
Tonight, keeping cool in school and in the community, and why some city pools were closed in these oppressive conditions. Good evening. A heat warning remains in effect tonight.
The sweltering weather record-breaking, with residents once again being warned to take precautions. CTV's Rahim Ladani begins our coverage tonight. He has been among those trying to beat the heat, and he joins us live now, lakeside. How's it feel there tonight?
You know, Michelle, it's not too bad. The wind's picked up in the last little while, and so it's actually quite comfortable for a short period of time. We're here down at Woodbine Beach, and there are so many people as far as the eye can see. A lot of people out down by the beach, cooling off at the water, enjoying this extreme weather. However, this extreme weather also comes with some serious warnings from health officials if you're not careful.
Searching for shade isn't always fashionable, but with temperatures soaring, staying cool is about balancing comfort with survival.
And I don't want him to get dehydrated. We were just actually playing in the park over there and he started to cry because of the heat, so making sure I have water on hand is great.
Dangerous heat and humidity continue to blanket southern Ontario. While heat waves in June aren't unusual in Toronto, what makes this one feel different is the humidex.
Humidex values in the mid-40s, upper 40s, depending on where you find yourself. So very hot, very sticky, very uncomfortable temperatures throughout this heat event.
At West Preparatory Junior Public School, this space is being used as a cooling center.
This is my multi-purpose room, normally used for kindergarten movement or gym classes or primary classes. But today we've just made sure that classes can come in here at any time.
Each of the TDSB's nearly 600 schools have some type of cooling center, but they don't all have air conditioning. And the board says it doesn't have the money to put them in.
We're in a budgetary situation, so every school is looked at. What can we do to cool or make sure we have a cooling center? And then again, if they're about to embark upon a renovation, that's when there's a consideration. But it's a lot of money.
That's putting parents in a position to take student safety into their own hands.
A few weeks ago at our parent council meeting, we just decided to take a bunch of funds and order industrial-sized fans.
At Woodbine Beach, Christine and her husband don't love the heat, but it beats the alternative.
You had the option of going inside a mall or outdoors. I choose outdoors.
And if you are going to be spending time outside, it's important to stay hydrated and take breaks from the sun by spending time in the shade to protect yourself from heat stroke.
As it becomes more and more severe, that's when you start to see the neurological complications. So you start to get, a little bit of a headache, maybe a little bit more confused. Maybe you're sort of acting in a way that would be atypical, and that's the beginnings of heat stroke. And then if that progresses, you can, quite frankly, lapse into a coma and die. That does happen.
And with relief still days away, it's important to stay safe and keep your cool.
Now, during this heat wave, the city has set up 3 water trailers. There's one at Nathan Phillips Square, Sankofa Square, and Trinity Bellwoods Park. Anyone can go up and get tap water to drink or to fill up their water bottles for free 24 hours a day. Reporting live, I'm Rahim Ladani. Nathan, I'll send it back to you.
All right, thank you, Rahim. Pools are an escape for many families in these sweltering conditions. So why, in the height of the heat wave, were a handful of pools closed yesterday? Toronto's mayor offering an apology as she faced some serious questions about staffing at city facilities today. CTV's Allison Hurst reports.
During Toronto's first heat wave of the year, 5 of the city's public pools were closed yesterday.
It should not happen. We should do better.
A handwritten note taped to the front door of Sunnyside Pool claimed it was too hot for city staff to work outside.
That's silly. I mean, it's a hot day. We should be swimming. That's the point.
They should do something to protect the staff, but also to allow us to go in because it's really, really hot.
Leaving families looking to cool off, stuck in the heat.
They were closed for 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. They were technically open. They just had a closure period. They were longer because the lifeguards were feeling really hot.
According to city staff, the intermittent closures were necessary in order to let lifeguards cool down following provincial requirements related to heat and humidex levels exceeding 45. The premier weighed in on the closure on News Talk 1010 today.
There was no Minister of Labour inspector that called up and said shut down the pools. She's citing maybe the labour rules, and like you said, those labour rules are specifically for hardworking people, like you said, pouring asphalt, and and opposed to sitting by a swimming pool that you can jump in any time and cool down.
By 3 p.m., Sunnyside Pool had reopened and stayed open through the evening.
This is just another case of the mayor not being properly prepared.
In a statement today, the city announced it would be deploying additional lifeguards to manage rest and work schedules in this heat to ensure pools stay open.
In nowhere here is she, who is the manager of the city, the top person in the city, taking any responsibility.
Mayor Olivia Chow is bringing a motion to City Council to address gaps in Toronto's heat relief strategy.
Residents expect us to do better, and we must do better.
All public pools are open, some with extended hours until almost midnight. Allison Hurst, CTV News.
And those extended hours likely to be much appreciated because the evening is not expected to bring much in the way of relief from this heat and humidity. A live shot this hour. Your chances are better of putting up with it if you are by the water because the city is steamy. Lindsay Morrison is out taking in the heat, and what a perfect location. You're at a splash pad, Lindsay. I'm sure it's really busy there tonight.
It is a popular place to be, Michelle. A lot of families have the right idea. They're coming down here, they're finding a shady spot to set up, maybe have some dinner, and then the kids are making the most of it and beating the heat. That water, nice and cold, exactly what you want on a day like this because it is, as you mentioned, sweltering out here. Let's take a look at the current temperatures. You know, we made it to a high of 36 degrees today, but it feels into the 40s, and you'll notice that right across the province, even lakeside communities, you're not getting a whole lot of relief on a day like this. We are really at the peak of this heat wave. We are under a heat warning. We will be through the night tonight and into tomorrow. There's been some breezy winds today out of the southwest. They're starting to ease. Not much to show you on the satellite and radar. It is a clear blue sky tonight, and this evening you are going to find it very hot through the rest. In fact, right into the overnight hours. Coming up, we're going to talk about just how hot it will be overnight tonight, how hot it will be tomorrow, and when we're finally going to get some relief from the heat. That's all coming up. For now, Nathan and Michelle, I'll send it back to you while these guys beat the heat.
All right, looking good. Thank you, Lindsay. And with relief from the extreme heat and humidity still days away, our health reporter shares expert tips on how to keep the little ones safe. The signs the heat is taking a toll still ahead.
But first, we turn to the Ajax GO station, which became a crime scene today.
A man was shot and killed in the parking lot. Durham police investigating the region's latest homicide. CTV's Beth McDonnell joins us live with the details. Beth.
Nathan, Durham Regional Police had this area closed earlier. They've since left, but commuters that I've been speaking to are generally surprised by the gun violence here. Police say it's not clear exactly how busy it was last night, but do say a train passed through here around the time events unfolded. A bike and evidence markers lay next to a commuter entrance for trains and buses at the Ajax GO station. It's on a pathway at the back of the parking garage, which Mitali Gandhi uses daily.
It's very scary. Like, I don't know, there's no constable here, no police in the light. In the night, it's all dark.
Police say they got a radio call to assist an ambulance around 11:30 last night. When they arrived, they found a man in his 20s suffering from gunshot wounds. But they believe the shooting took place earlier.
We believe it occurred about an hour and a half before we got here. So right now we're looking between the time frame of 9 p.m. and 10 p.m.
The wounded man was then rushed to a trauma center but didn't survive. Homicide investigators are now working to figure out what happened. Officers are reviewing security footage and believe there is the potential for witnesses. They're asking anyone who may have seen anything suspicious to come forward. One bus driver tells us he was contacted by the police after seeing someone at the station around 9:30 at night.
And he stopped, turned it around. No one with him, just with, he has carry backpack with himself.
On foot?
Yeah, and he turned around. He talked to himself screaming, okay, and he turned around again and he kept walking to the traffic light.
Commuters today have been surprised to learn of the deadly gun violence.
I think, it's like very shocking, what I heard happen recently. Everyone's got to watch their safety, like anywhere they go, like either it's Ajax GO station, with the GO station, anywhere.
Definitely unsafe. Like, it's scary. It's a very scary thing to see that somebody has a gun, somebody would have the intentions to harm somebody, especially at a very, very public place.
Police say they're looking for one male suspect who took off on foot. So far, police haven't provided a more detailed description of the suspect. They are working to notify the victim's next of kin. Reporting live, I'm Beth McDonnell. Michelle, back to you.
Thank you, Beth. Still ahead, a constructive attempt to break the bank. Would-be thieves leave behind heavy equipment and extensive damage at a Scarborough bank. We'll have the details.
But first, there's a significant development in a cold case. A man convicted of killing an elderly Toronto couple in the 90s has now been charged in a decades-old murder near Peterborough. CTV's John Woodward reports.
In the 1990s, David Snow was known as the House Hermit, named because of his break-and-enters into empty cottages in southern Ontario, sometimes living in them. In 1992, he told Ian and Nancy Blackburn he wanted to buy their barn on a property in Caledon. They were last seen alive on April 7th. Police searched their cottage and found Nancy Blackburn's handbag still on the bed, her medication on the dresser. Their bodies were found a week later in their car on their Toronto driveway. The cause of death, strangulation. Police at the time issued warnings to cottage goers.
People should take care if they go up and open a cottage, they should get a good look around first before they enter the cottage.
The trail led to Snow. He had already used a rail pass to flee to BC, where he abducted and sexually assaulted 4 women. He was arrested, returned, and convicted. The Blackburns' nephew astonished at his crimes.
I've had the occasion to actually be quite close to him and stare him right in the eye, and it's just a blank stare. It just doesn't seem to be anything there.
Snow was a suspect in at least 12 murders, including that of gift shop owner Carolyn Case, also found dead in the area.
He has not shown any type of remorse at any time in my meetings with him.
Some 34 years later, the OPP visited Snow, now 70 years old, in Bath Institution to arrest him again, laying another murder charge. This time for a woman who went missing more than 6 months before the Blackburns, 40-year-old Angeline Quinnell.
The OPP never closes a case, and it doesn't matter how much time has passed.
Quinnell's family telling CTV News they hope for privacy, as the decades-old cold case will soon be prosecuted in a Peterborough courtroom. John Woodward, CTV News.
In Hamilton, police have laid a murder charge in the disappearance of a 40-year-old woman.
Shalini Singh was reported missing in December, and now investigators have determined partial human remains found in a landfill belong to her. CTV's John Musselman reports.
Hamilton detectives confirmed the devastating news today. The partial human remains discovered in a Hamilton area landfill site belong to 40-year-old Shalini Singh. Police allege she was murdered inside her Hamilton apartment on the night of December the 4th or early in the morning on December the 5th. Her body was removed from the building through the garbage disposal system. When police confirmed the DNA analysis, her common-law partner was arrested.
Later that day, 42-year-old Jeffrey Smith of Burlington, Shalini's common-law partner at the time of her death, was arrested without incident. He has now been charged with second-degree murder and indignity to human remains.
Singh was last seen alive in December on security video entering her building. She was never seen leaving it. She was reported missing by her family on December the 10th. Police were initially searching for her and her common-law partner, but he was found the next day at a family member's house. Detectives say the Singh family has asked for privacy.
This is not only about resolving an investigation, but it's about giving answers to a family who have waited a very long time to get to this point. And even though they've waited this long and the moment has built up to this, it still is a shock to them to get the confirmation.
Police are not discussing a possible motive, saying it's now before the courts. Investigators say Singh and Smith were together as a couple between 5 and 7 years. The accused in this case made his first court appearance on Saturday. He has been remanded in custody. John Musselman, CTV News in Hamilton.
York police are investigating a brazen shooting in Markham. Nobody was injured, but the crime was caught on camera. It happened around 2:30 in the morning on Sunday in the Bridle Walk and Holst Avenue area. The suspect fired shots at the home and then fled to a nearby park. There were people in the home at the time, but no one was hurt. Police say they believe the shooting was targeted and continue to investigate.
We turn to some extraordinary lengths to try and rob a bank in Scarborough.
Now take a look at the damage left behind after an excavator was used to try and break inside. CTV's Scott Lightfoot has the details.
It is 2:46 a.m. when surveillance video shows an excavator slowly creeping across the parking lot of a plaza at the corner of Port Union Road and Fanfare Ave. Seconds later, the person operating that excavator raises the machine's arm and drives the bucket right through the roof of the plaza.
It was like, is this for real? This is not a usual attempt of a break-in.
It was a shocking scene for plaza owner Graham Scarborough when he drove up this morning. He first got the call around 5 a.m. telling him someone had used an excavator to try and gain access to the Scotiabank on site. But it wasn't until he arrived that he saw just how extensive the damage was.
I guess the excavator was stolen from a nearby construction site and driven into the property, and they attempted to access the automatic teller machines with an excavator through the roof and demolished the front of 2 stores in the attempt to get in.
That attempt may not have been a spur-of-the-moment mission. Security footage from just minutes before shows a U-Haul backing into the area where the excavator would roll through moments later. A car can also be seen pulling in, and both appear to move and park on the opposite side of the parking lot when the excavator begins to demolish the front of the building.
I walked across the street and I'm like, oh my God. This is crazy.
Throughout the day, those who live and work in the neighborhood came by to survey the damage.
So I was shocked. I was shocked, like totally ripped off, right? Like I never expected this big happened here.
And they weren't the only ones taking a look. Structural engineers worked to determine the extent of the damage. The plaza's owner says it could cost as much as $500,000. And as for what the thieves managed to steal,
they got nothing.
The would-be thieves left the excavator in place when they took off empty-handed. It was later moved and surrounded by crime tape. Toronto police have yet to make any arrests. Those in the area struggling to make any sense of exactly what happened here.
I can't really say I'm surprised. You know, I've pretty much seen it all. You know, and I'm actually speechless for that one. I don't know what to say.
Scott Lightfoot, CTV News.
And a developing story tonight. The westbound 407 is closed in the Burlington and Oakville area as a result of several grass fires producing heavy smoke. OPP say Highway 407 closure is between Appleby and Bronte Road. Officials say they're responding to multiple grass fires along the railway tracks in the area. No injuries have been reported. Iran made good on its threat to attack the U.S. after the Trump administration dropped 30,000-pound bombs on 3 nuclear facilities.
The Americans were expecting what's being called a symbolic retaliation. CTV's Joy Malbin reports.
Explosions boomed over the night sky, terrifying images of missiles seen over Doha and posted on social media. Iranian state TV said it fired missiles at the Al Adid U.S. military base that President Donald Trump visited just 1 month ago. Qatar says its air defenses managed to intercept Iranian missiles, and no casualties have been reported. The attack was announced on Iran state TV Proportionate. Iran said to the attack by the U.S. it was bomb for bomb. This was retaliation, Iran says, for the U.S. bombing Saturday. Satellite imagery shows the damage to 3 nuclear facilities targeted by the U.S. President Donald Trump warned Iran this was a one-off and not to strike back, or else.
Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier.
Iran reportedly gave Qatar advance notice of the attacks, temporarily closing its airspace, U.S. military bases, and major U.S. cities on high alert. The president meeting with his national security team and the Trump administration stressing,
we're not at war with Iran, we're at war with Iran's nuclear program.
But it comes as the president, sure to anger Iran, floated the idea of regime change.
Of course, Iran would like to escalate in response to the Israeli and the American attacks, but we will see exactly whether Iran is actually able to effectively respond. And I think this is what we're going to see over the next 48 hours.
Throughout all this, U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff has kept in touch with Iranian officials. The Trump administration still leaving the door open to some kind of diplomatic resolution. Joy Malbin, CTV News, Washington.
Meanwhile, there's an update on efforts by the federal government to assist Canadians in the region. Canada has joined other countries in helping their citizens who want to leave. Bus services for Canadians started this morning from 2 locations to Jordan. 55 left Tel Aviv and 7 others from the West Bank. 4 buses also stationed in Turkey at the Iranian border, and 10 Canadians used that service yesterday. In all cases, the evacuees are being taken to locations where Ottawa is arranging access to commercial travel options.
The fighting in the Middle East threatened to overshadow developments at a summit in Brussels today.
Canada's Prime Minister was in Belgium to meet with European leaders and sign a new defense and security agreement. CTV's Jeremy Sharon has the details.
A morning visit to a military cemetery kick-started Prime Minister Mark Carney's first full day in Belgium. A ceremony to honor hundreds of fallen Canadian soldiers buried here after the First and Second World War. Ahead of this Canada-EU summit, a meeting between Carney and European leaders focused on joint security and defense.
Very, very warm welcome to this EU-Canada summit.
We look forward to moving to an ever closer partnership with the European Union.
Here, Carney signed a new security and defense pact with European Union leaders aimed at diversifying its trade and defense industrial partnerships, billed as a first step towards more defense procurement from Europe and an eventual plan to get Canada into the Rearm Europe military program.
It will help us deliver on our new requirements for capabilities more rapidly and more effectively. It will help build our industries, secure our jurisdictions.
But Carney's European trip has been dominated already by the escalating war in the Middle East. The Prime Minister spoke with President Trump overnight and says de-escalation was a focus of their conversation.
Where the state of Iran has been a sponsor of terrorism, Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and beyond. And where at least in our opinion, Canada has listed the Iranian Revolutionary Guard as a terrorist organization, active terrorist organization. These are violations of international law.
Carney travels to The Hague in the morning for a highly anticipated NATO meeting where it's expected the conflict in the Middle East will dominate too. NATO's Secretary General was pressed on it today.
That is why NATO has said Iran should not, and this is a consistent position of NATO, Iran should not have its hands on a nuclear weapon. So, and I would not agree that this is against international law, what the U.S. did.
The Hague summit will also see the alliance look at a new baseline spending target of 5% of GDP. Canada only this month committed to meeting the current 2% target this fiscal year, a decade after the alliance agreed to it. Jeremy Sharon, CTV News, Brussels.
Remembering the victims of Air India Flight 182. This is the 40th anniversary of the bombing that killed 329 people, the vast majority of them Canadian. Commemorative ceremonies were held today at several Canadian cities and in India and in County Cork, Ireland, which was attended by Canada's Public Safety Minister.
We gathered at around 8 a.m., just around the same time as Air India Flight 182 went down on the coast of Ireland. We had about 12 separate families, around 40 people who gathered from the family members as well as several hundred from the community.
A bomb planted by 6 separatists exploded on board the jet over the Atlantic Ocean off the Irish coast. A second suitcase bomb exploded before being transferred onto an Air India jet, killing 2 baggage handlers in Tokyo.
The race is on in Scarborough Rouge Park. Nominations for the by-election now open. A slew of candidates putting their name on the ballot. We'll tell you who's vying for a seat at City Hall coming up.
And I'm Pat Foran. Coming up on Consumer Alert, when we need to find a product or service, many of us use a search engine like Google, but you should know criminals are spoofing websites, so the first one that pops up could be a scam. A woman was just defrauded out of $26,000. All of that story, that's just ahead.
Well, if you're a kid on a hot summer night, this is where you want to be. The splash pad is busy, the sun is shining, and boy, oh boy, is it hot. Let's take a look at some of the record highs that were reached yesterday. Remember that? Yeah, that was a very humid day as well. And the records were broken all around the GTA. We came close in the city of Toronto, but not quite. Overnight tonight, look at this. 25 for the low, feeling into the 30s. This would be hot for a daytime daytime high at this time of year, but instead it is going to be very uncomfortable for sleeping, and we've got more sweltering weather in store for tomorrow. A full look at your weather forecast is coming up live from the splash pad, and stay with us. We've got another full night of great shows for you right here on CTV.
When you see it happen, send it to CTV News. Text 10400 from your screen to ours. Text 10400.
Well, many of us use search engines several times a day to find products and services, and most of the time there are absolutely no problems.
However, some criminals are now creating websites that look like the real thing to try and steal your banking and personal information. Here's Pat Foran and Consumer Alert. Pat.
Thanks, Nathan and Michelle. A woman recently wanted to open a business account with the Canada Revenue Agency. She did a Google search, which took her to what she thought was the CRA's website. But it was a fake, and she was scammed out of more than $26,000.
How was I supposed to know it was a scammer? I really didn't know that.
Ruth Jean of London operates her own company and needed to set up a business account with the Canada Revenue Agency. In March, she did a Google search to find the CRA's website.
And I clicked on it. It opened out. The CRA name was on there.
Jean says she was asked to put in her social insurance number and other personal information. Then she was asked for her banking details.
I asked for the card number, the ATM password, and the expiration date for the card and all that information. So I put it in. After I submit the information, the screen went blank.
Jean was on a fake spoof CRA website that looked like the real thing. Once criminals had her banking information, they emptied her bank account of more than $26,000.
You thought you were on the real PC Financial website.
Of course I did.
Earlier this year, we did a story with a senior trying to buy GICs who also got caught in a fake website scam that cost him $750,000.
I've got zero, nothing.
We reached out to Google, and a spokesperson said, when we find ads that breach our policies, we take immediate action, including removing the ads and suspending advertiser accounts when necessary.
Individuals can actually pay to have their listing right at the top, and some of those listings are not verified, and they're what we call spoofed websites.
Cybersecurity experts say you need to make sure you're on the proper website before entering financial information. Third-party link checkers can also help detect fraud.
The easiest way is to read the URL, which is the address, the domain address, up in the browser. Make sure that it's accurate, that it's spelled accurately. Look for the padlock in the browser. That padlock means that there is a security certificate and that your information is encrypted.
Jean says she is devastated to lose her hard-earned money.
I feel sad. I feel like angry. I was just trying to sign up for a business account on CRA.
And be very cautious. If you get a text or an email that appears to come from your bank, it may try to get you to click on a link that will take you to a website that looks like the real thing, but could be a fake. On your side, I'm Pat Foran.
If you have a consumer story idea, email us at alert@ctv.ca.
All right, so for today, of course, it's most important for everyone to stay cool. It's so hot, and nothing better than a splash pad. Kids always love it.
Oh, Lindsay is at the splash pad at Thompson Memorial Park. It's so fun to see all the kids there. And really, when you are wet, it's not so bad. But for those, when you step outside, it sure feels just like an oven. And this isn't going away, Lindsay, anytime soon.
Oh boy, I can't remember the last time we had a day this hot. I know it feels like it was just yesterday, but we're still getting used to this again. These kids don't mind, though. I'm making some friends. We have Amaya, Carmelo, and Ishani. Who's having fun tonight? Me! Oh, I thought so. Tell me what it is that you're doing here tonight.
We're just having a picnic, playing in the water to cool off.
Yeah. And is that water cold, Amaya?
Yes.
But in a good way, right?
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. And Ishani, are you going to have some more fun here tonight?
Yeah, I think.
Okay, awesome. Why don't you guys go ahead and splash in the water while I talk a little bit about this forecast, because the hot weather, it's sticking around. So you might want to find a splash pad soon. Go ahead. You did awesome. Here's a look at our current temperatures, and it's not just us here in southern Ontario feeling the heat. This is happening right across the eastern half of the United States. Look at those humidex values. It feels into the 40s in so many locations, tens of millions being impacted by this, in fact. Let's talk about Toronto today. We made it to a high of about 36 degrees. That easily breaks our daily temperature record, which is just shy of 33. Still unofficial at this point, but yes, we can go ahead and call this a record-breaking day, one for the books for sure in the month of June. Tonight, not cooling down all that much. Of course, relatively speaking, we are, but at 25 degrees, still feeling like 32. That is very hot for an overnight low. Here's tomorrow at a glance. It's going to be another scorcher of a day where you can get outside and enjoy the heat and humidity, or perhaps find somewhere cool to cool off. A library, a good option for that, perhaps a shopping mall. It is still going to be very warm, and yes, we do have a heat warning that is in place. I also want to talk about the UV index, because the sun, the angle of it, very strong at this time of year, and of course we have so many hours of daylight. You'll want to protect yourself, protect your skin if you're venturing out. We're going to be at about a 10 again tomorrow, 11 in Windsor. Not much active weather to talk about right now. I do want to mention that into tomorrow we expect to see a little bit of an increase in cloud cover, and there's a slight chance of a shower or a passing storm. So let's set that forecast radar in motion. It is worth mentioning, though, that the majority of the active weather for this week isn't going to come until about Thursday or Friday, and with that we will also have a bit of cooler weather as well. So 22 is our forecast daytime high for Thursday. We're going to be back up around 24 degrees on Friday, and then we're heating up again, not quite like this, but heating up again as we make our way into what for many is going to be the Canada Day long weekend. Again, we are live here at Thompson Memorial Park. We're having some fun. I just wanted to feel the water here, Nathan and Michelle. Yeah, nice and cool. Oh boy, that's tempting. I know I've got an expensive microphone in my hand, so I'm going to hold off as long as possible, but I'm probably getting in there before the hour is finished. For now, though, I'll send it back inside to the nice air-conditioned studio to you, Nathan and Michelle.
It is cool here, but it does look like fun there. I suggest you go in there and cool down. All right, thanks. Also tonight, protecting our most vulnerable from the extreme heat. Our health reporter Pauline Chan talks to an expert and shares some cool tips to avoid heat-related illness. This extreme heat can have a greater impact on the city's most vulnerable residents, which includes children.
CTV's health reporter Pauline Chan has more on the best ways to keep kids safe as the temperature soars.
A splash and some cool, refreshing water is just what the doctor ordered for this heat wave. But for the very young, the elderly, those with respiratory issues, or with no air conditioning, some extra caution must be taken to avoid heat-related illness. Babies and toddlers are especially vulnerable.
First of all, their sweat glands are a little bit more immature. Their internal regulations are not as efficient. And they also have a higher surface area to body ratio. So they don't sweat as much.
Plus, they can't talk yet.
They can't tell us that they're overheated or dehydrated.
Dr. Natasha Kalia says heat cramps, heat exhaustion, and heat stroke are all part of a spectrum.
We start with heat like skin rashes. We start with heat syncope or fainting, and then heat cramps.
The next level of symptoms is heat exhaustion, when you start sweating excessively.
Other things you might see with heat exhaustion is just feeling fatigue, flushed skin. You might feel a little dry around the lips, dry, cracked lips. You'll feel tired. You'll maybe sometimes even feel dizzy, lightheaded, faint, nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain.
And heat stroke is a life-threatening condition when the body is no longer able to sweat to cool off.
Now there might be organ damage, talking about heart, lung, kidneys, and even brain. We may see seizures with heat stroke. That is where, if you do not recognize those symptoms and you do not seek medical attention early, those can be fatal.
Dr. Colia says during a heat wave such as this, sick kids might see several cases of heat-related illness in a week. Her advice for parents: keep a close eye on the weather forecast so you're prepared for the heat, avoid going out at the hottest times of the day, and keep the kids hydrated, and not just water.
Hydration with electrolytes is super important.
She also points out that children overheat 3 to 5 times faster than adults, so never leave them or even your pets unattended in a car for even a few minutes. Pauline Chan, CTV News.
The provincial government has taken another step on the road to end the long wait to access primary care. In April, the Ministry of Health put out a call for pitches to create or expand primary health teams. The aim is connecting 300,000 more people to that type of care by the end of the year. Today, the government announced 130 teams will get a slice of $235 million to help more patients in communities of the greatest need, including Toronto's Flemington Health Centre.
This investment is part of our government's $2.1 billion primary care action plan to connect everyone in Ontario to a publicly funded family care doctor or primary care team.
We know that many have waited a long time for this, and while it won't happen overnight, teams will begin accepting patients in the coming weeks and months.
Officials say more announcements like this are coming, with another batch of requests for proposals for health teams expected in September. The goal is to have every Ontarian linked to primary care by 2029.
Voters in Scarborough Rouge Park will soon be heading to the polls to fill the council seat left vacant by Jennifer McKelvey, who was elected federally.
As CTV's Natalie Johnson reports, the by-election battle began today.
The gates opened and it was off to the race to represent Scarborough Rouge Park at City Hall.
All right.
Up first to file.
Do you have your nomination paper?
The former head of the Scarborough Business Association, Sean Allen.
We got to get value for what we're paying for the city for taxes. I think I could bring that conversation up. I'm a business professional.
Flanked and endorsed by two current councillors.
It's a common sense perspective, and from my experience in the chamber over the past couple of years, there's a real shortage of that.
We already have about 5 ex-school trustees on council, so I think that point of view is well represented.
But school board experience is an asset, argues TDSB Chair Nathan Shan, who was hoping to make a comeback as a councillor.
I'm getting support from a diverse group of people who have different thoughts around how we should be proceeding and building the city together, because they know me as a person who gets things done.
Anu Shrishkan Daraja is also a TDSB trustee from Scarborough, looking to join her husband Parthi Kandaval on council.
People feel that change is being imposed on them as opposed to them driving that change, and so I think the focus would be making sure that people feel local democracy is working for them.
Would you vote together?
We didn't at the board, so I think we have a broad outlook politically that's aligned, and I think that forms our partnership and marriage. But I think there are many issues that we don't see eye to eye on.
Congratulations.
Reza Koshtel, meanwhile, says his lived experience in Scarborough would bring fresh perspective to City Hall.
I am the byproduct of when a city works. I grew up with very little, and it was the community centers, it was the libraries, the rec centers, the basketball courts that kept me out of trouble, that uplifted me when I needed it. And I feel like the city that we're living in today is not the city that I grew up in.
But the by-election ballot could be long, with plenty of voices pledging to stand up for Scarborough.
I want to make a difference in the community, in the neighborhood, and stand up for my neighbors and bring respect for the taxpayer dollars.
Just tired of what's going on, and I'd like to get in there and see if I can help.
Whoever wins the Scarborough Rouge Park race will only have about a year in the council seat. By-election day is September 29th. The next general election is in October 2026. Natalie Johnson, CTV News.
After the break, inspiring a new generation and making Canada proud. Hamilton's Shea Gilgeous-Alexander makes NBA history as OKC wins its first ever NBA championship. We hear from family and friends next.
We have breaking news from Washington, where Donald Trump says Israel and Iran have agreed to a, quote, complete and total ceasefire that will be phased in over 24 hours. The U.S. president says the truce would bring an official end to the war. The United States struck 3 Iranian nuclear sites on the weekend. Tehran fired missiles today at an American military base in Qatar.
Index values in the mid-40s, upper 40s, depending on where you find yourself. So very hot, very sticky, very uncomfortable temperatures throughout this heat event.
And updating our top stories, dangerously high temperatures persisted today across much of the GTA and Ontario. The TDSB urging students to wear light clothing, hats, and drink lots of water. Toronto opened more than 500 cooling spaces and says some outdoor pools will stay open until nearly midnight.
They were closed for
1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. They were technically open. They just had a closure period.
Toronto will be deploying additional lifeguards to ensure its public pools stay open. 5 of them were closed intermittently yesterday to allow staff to cool down. The mayor will be introducing a motion to City Council to address, quote, serious gaps in Toronto's heat relief strategy.
On the markets, the Canadian dollar is down slightly to 72.80. Our fix on Western Canadian Select has it at 61.85, up 37 cents a barrel. And the TSX ending the day at 26,609, up almost 112 points.
The Business Report is brought to you by Canadian Western Bank, the bank built for business.
A giant of the basketball court with roots right here in Ontario is once again making history.
Hamilton Shea Gilgeous-Alexander helping the Oklahoma City Thunder capture their first NBA title last night. And as CTV's Mike Walker reports, he's quickly become one of the league's biggest stars.
A giant image of Shea Gilgeous-Alexander proudly on display outside his former high school, Sir Alan McNabb. And there is civic pride today with the Hamilton native, now an NBA champion.
Proud to be a Hamiltonian. It's like he has wings, he can fly. It's just so hard to describe. I'm just totally amazed.
Considering I went to McNabb, it's amazing.
It's good for Hamilton, and it's nice to hear a Hamilton boy winning it.
Gilgeous-Alexander led the way with 29 points as the Oklahoma City Thunder won their first NBA championship, defeating the Pacers 103-91 in Game 7.
Everything. That's why you play the sport. You play the sport to win.
The 26-year-old capturing the Finals MVP, a first for a Canadian.
You're asking about what separates him probably from the bunch. I think that's it. Is consistency and the discipline to get better.
His father calls this success a blessing after years of hard work and a strong support system.
Late nights in the gym, early mornings, trainers and coaches and all the people that helped us get here. You don't do that stuff by yourself.
Gilgeous-Alexander now enters an elite club, becoming only the 4th player in NBA history to win league MVP, finals MVP, the scoring title, and championship, all in the same season.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Michael Jordan, Shaquille O'Neal, and now Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. So he's in great company, rare company. And look, I have seen enough to say with confidence that this is the greatest Canadian basketball player ever.
The way that he's representing Canada is just unbelievable.
Tim Francis was Gilgeous-Alexander's high school basketball coach and watched the finals beaming with pride.
We saw the hard work. We saw the work ethic. Being an NBA champion, being an MVP of the finals, an MVP of the league, I don't think anybody saw that coming. But we did know that he was going to get to whatever his goals were.
He says Gilgeous-Alexander's success story on and off the court is a huge inspiration for young players.
Humble beginnings and hard work and what that can get you to, how that can pay off.
Only a dozen Canadian players have won an NBA title. Family and hometown fans hoping Gilgeous-Alexander will see much more success on the court. Mike Walker, CTV News, Hamilton.
Making everyone proud. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. now occupies the top spot for first baseman for next month's MLB All-Star game.
Vladdy drives the ball.
The Blue Jays slugger has more than 1.1 million votes after jumping past Paul Goldschmidt of the New York Yankees. Guerrero is batting .279 with 10 home runs and 39 RBI so far this season. He will tie a franchise record if the fans select him to be an All-Star for a 4th time. Guerrero's teammate Alejandro Kirk is currently 2nd in the catchers category. Well, the mysteries of the universe in view. The world's most powerful telescope equipped with the largest digital camera ever. The stunning first images prompting a viewing party at U of T. The largest camera ever made is sending back spectacular scenes of our solar system.
The image is the focus of a party at the University of Toronto. CTV's Jessica Smith has the story.
Images that are truly out of this world.
In the images that we saw, we had galaxies nearby to us. We had very far away galaxies. There were objects we'd never seen before. And this is just the tiniest snapshot.
Here you can see Simoni's survey telescope.
The first images from the Vera C. Rubin Observatory in Chile, the Earth's largest camera, have made their way back to Earth.
The first images are amazing. Even knowing kind of, on paper what was going to come out, to actually see the images and the resolution is pretty awe-inspiring.
The telescope has been under construction for nearly 2 decades, and this week marks the first few images sent back from space.
Very soon, the telescope will start real operations, which means it'll start giving us data all the time, and really we'll have to run to keep up with it, which is exciting.
The live stream of the first findings were shared around the world, including to students and professors at the University of Toronto.
Even though we're watching from the US, this is a really big moment for Canada because it means that we actually will be able to do science with the data as well and discover these incredible things.
Over the next decade, the Rubin Observatory is set to create the ultimate time-lapse of the Southern Hemisphere. The public is encouraged to follow along by visiting rubinobservatory.org. Jessica Smith, CTV News.
Back here on Terra Firma, we are baking, but Lindsay, you've got the right idea.
I'm telling you, this is the place to be, Nathan and Michelle, and tomorrow it will be too. Here's a look at tomorrow's forecast daytime highs. Not quite as hot as today, but still very hot. Temperatures in the 30s, feeling into the 40s. One more look at your 7-day forecast does show a little bit of relief coming, not nearly as humid by Wednesday. And then Thursday and Friday, we are getting into seasonal temperatures and some rain. It's been a pleasure here from the Splash Pad, Nathan and Michelle. Here I go. Wish me luck. Stay cool.
Have fun.
Enjoy.
Oh. Yeah, she made good on her promise.
All right.
Love it, Lindsay. Woohoo!
I
hope her kids are watching.
It
That's
makes
so
a difference,
fun.
though.
All right, that's it for us. But join Omar Sachinina at 11 for CTV National News, followed by Zoraida Allman at 11:30.
Meantime, coverage continues on CP24 and online at ctvnewstoronto.ca.
For Lindsay Morrison, who's a great sport, and all of us here at CTV News, thanks for watching. Have a wonderful night and stay cool.